So for meal breaks, now everybody knows about the Brinker decision. We've had that now, I think, since 2013, I think, if I recall correctly. Huge benefit for California employers. Again, you're not required to force everybody to take the 30-minute meal break. You need to make them available. If employees work through the 30-minute meal break, that doesn't automatically create liability for the employer. But now, what's the problem with that? If you've got records showing that nobody's taking a 30-minute meal break, and your default argument was, well, it's available, but everybody just wanted to work through it, it's going to be really hard to defend that claim. So a lot of employers are just going to this mandatory, require everybody to clock out for the 30-minute meal break. And it has to be a full 30 minutes before the end of the 5th hour. So a lot of employers are doing that and monitoring the time records to make sure that the employees are clocking out. And if they're not clocking out, either following up with the employee and asking why they weren't able to clock out. And if they were, say, I was just too busy, it was a busy time, a lot of employers are going to the practice of going ahead and paying out the extra hour of premium pay for the missed meal break. And I like seeing that. If I'm defending a case, I like having an employer that has paid a few of those out every now and then. Because one, it shows that you've got an effective policy that if somebody misses their break, it can be resolved, or if somebody complains about missing a break, you've got this complaint procedure that they can utilize to get paid what they're owed. And then you've got a good defense saying, well, they never complained, and if this employee had ever complained like these other employees, they would have been paid. Why didn't this employee complain? And you've got a good defense on that argument. Great question. It's called the early lunching, and Brinker, in the case that went up to the California Supreme Court, did exactly that, would have people clock in and work for a period of time. And the California Supreme Court said, yes, that's okay, but then didn't define when it's okay and when it's not okay. They said when it's reasonable. So what I'd like to see on the early lunching like that is have employees clock in and work at least 45 minutes or an hour. I don't like this where they clock in and immediately clock out for a 30-minute meal break and then clock in for the next 8 hours. Have them do some tasks up front, and for like an hour or so, I think that's a very defensible claim, and then clock out for the 30-minute meal break, clock in, and then you're good for the full 8-hour shift at that point. So meal break waivers in the restaurant industry, and don't confuse these with on-duty meal break waivers. There's two different types of waivers. There's a waiver that I do recommend you implement in the restaurant setting, and that's a waiver. The employee can waive their meal break if their shift is less than 6 hours. They can waive it. And I do recommend having that as a blanket waiver. You can put that in place when employees are signed in the new hire packet, saying if you work less than 6 hours, are you going to waive your 30-minute meal break? And if they say yes, that's enforceable. That's good to have in place. Now, what I don't like, though, are these on-duty meal break agreements, or they call meal period waivers. A lot of employers call it, where it's like one employee behind the counter. What if, could you just waive the meal break? And in the restaurant setting, you can't. There's been an opinion letter by the labor commissioner, basically in a fast food establishment, asked if the employee or the manager was the only one that had certain duties, access to the safe, could resolve certain customer complaints and things like that, and said, look, they take their meal break, it's back in the office, but they're on call. If something comes up, they need to be there to deal with these issues. And the labor commissioner said, no, that's not enough. There's no reason that the assistant manager or somebody else couldn't fill in for that 30 minutes, get them to take a full 30-minute meal break and then come back after the fact.